Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again to do another anime review covering episodes 7 and 8 of Pluto. First things first, before I do talk about the episodes, I will cover the synopsis of each episode. So, a big thanks to everyone who has been following these reviews so far, and I must admit I have really come to enjoy this series. So, better get to it. Let's get to the synopsis of episode 7 and episode 8. Now, for episode 7, it says, for the synopsis, it says, Dr. Tenma attempts to bring Atom back at all costs. A government official advises a distressed Epsilon to evacuate, as he is now the next target on Pluto's list. For episode 8, we have Professor Okanomizu. In my case, I'm just going to call him the Professor. It's easier and simple for me. Who closely monitors Atom's erratic behavior. Dr. Tenma confronts his past, and the truth unravels, triggering a world-destroying threat. Now, both of these episodes, the first episode goes for about 55 minutes. The other one goes for an hour 7. I'll now start on my review, covering Act 1 and Act 2 for episode 7, to which are roughly 30 minutes each. So, jumping into episode 7, Act 1 for the 30 minutes. Starting in a small flashback, we see Dr. Tenma meeting with the character of Abdullah, and we get these flashbacks between past and present and also some of the events that take place. Whilst this is happening, we also get to see a little bit more in regards to Gashit's wife, who meets up with Dr. Tenma and gives Dr. Tenma the memory chip which belonged to Gashit, and we do learn that this memory chip will be used and put into Atom later on. As this occurs, we end up moving into the situation which revolves around the character of Epsilon, who we meet a character by the name of Hogan, who is practically his bodyguard now in regards to recent or past events that have taken place within the story, to which we know that he has basically taken in war orphans into his foster home, and whilst he is away, we also get some flashbacks in relation to Epsilon and some of the things that he was asked to do. And yes, one of the things that he was asked to do was basically destroy an area to which had dead robots in it, to which their artificial intelligence had been taken out of them. But it's also in that event that we also learn in this flashback, this is where Epsilon actually came in and saved Vasily. So as the story continues in regards to what is happening, we do end up having a situation where Epsilon is confronted the first time in regards to the character of Pluto, and then we have the second time, which will take place a little bit afterwards. And in the first time, in regards to the Pluto event, that's sort of like where it does lead him to being taken to a safe place. From there, when they are in the safe place, they hear the children singing one of the songs, which Vasily actually plays an important part in singing the song. And when you do hear that song, you'll see its connection in regards to the story. Quickly jumping into Act 2, we get to see a little bit more in regards to the events around Epsilon and the decision that comes at play. And in the meantime, we also learn that the character of Vasily is basically adopted or taken from someone who is of a shadowy background of sorts. And we learned that this person of this shadowy background who has taken Vasily is basically then taken to Pluto to use as a bit of a lure to get Epsilon to fight Pluto once again, to which the event does occur, and the bodyguard Hogan also plays a big part in helping to save Vasily. In the process, we do get to see Epsilon sort of like go out in hero fashion, and it was really amazing as to how they executed that. And it's not long after that whilst we're sort of like in the presence of Tenma, when moving over to certain scenes, that we start to see the waking up of the character of Atom. I'll now move into episode 8, the first act, which is roughly 33.5 minutes long. As the story begins, we get a bit of a flashback in this story, to which we're in the country of Frisia, which is basically sort of like set up like the US, for example. And we get a bit of a story around one of their national parks and a people known as Nananabu, which I guess in some essence is sort of like meant to represent their native peoples. And also the big bad, to which we will learn is sort of like a metaphor to the character of Bora in this story. So, as things also continue within episode 8, we finally get a full flashback in regards to the character of Gashit, and we learn about his background and why he actually did what he did against the human person who died by his hands, and sort of like basically why some of this was actually erased from his own personal data. And we also see how the director is sort of connected to that, as well as like other unknown forces at work. So not long after that happens, we end up Tenma meeting up with Abdullah, and there's some talk that's happening with Abdullah and Tenma there, and we learn that the Abdullah that we see here isn't the real Abdullah, like the human Abdullah, but in fact we learned that Abdullah slash Goji, to which he is, so he's a bit of both. We learned that this robot has basically dual personalities, one being Abdullah and the other one being Goji. One played a part in the creation of Pluto, whilst the other one played a part in the creation of what is now Bora. Not long after that, we're seeing Atom wake up in the story. We do get a little bit more which happens around his character, which I really quite like. There's even a scene to which he has a formula being basically done in a bit of a isolated room. We, of course, see the return of Uran, and yes, there is a bit of a talk between Uran and also Tenma in the previous episode, which I should have brought up before, but now bringing it up now. And we get to see those characters sort of like talk a bit in regards to how she's able to sense certain events, and mainly in the event which it was shown, the fight between Pluto and Epsilon. We do see her talking and giving a sense of presence of such. I really think that the sense of her presence, of like picking it up in the atmosphere, could have been presented better. And this is something I've sort of like brought in regards to the beginning of seeing her character, and I still hold to it towards the end. Of course, she also shows worry in relation to Atom, her brother, in regards to the story, in regards doing like a anti-proton bomb formula, to sort of like something to stop the effect of a big bang of sorts, which will affect the Earth. And this is sort of like one of the things that will be the big threat in episode 8. But in this case, the threat actually comes in relation to the character of Bora, who is basically planting bombs of sorts, or using their body to do explosions in the Earth in the land of Thracia. So with Atom then heading off to Thracia, we move to the area of Eden Park, which is in some essence reminds us of the place called Yellowstone. He of course sees Brow before this, or before going to Yellowstone and confronting Pluto. He gets Brow to do a job for him, to which we do get to see where that plays a part towards the end of the story and why it's there. We also see him meeting up with the character of Helena, to which Helena sees that he actually told a lie to her when she was asking him a few questions. Not long after that, he does end up traveling to the land of Thracia, to which the battle between Pluto and Atom begins. After that takes place, they do end up reaching a bit of a stalemate of sorts and stopping. And of course, the question is, why do robots cry? And in a way, and even though they show us on screen that they are crying, including Pluto himself, there's a bit of a discussion, and of course through there, or after the discussion, we move into Atom about to take on the character of Bora, who we do actually see that Bora was seen in the presence of Tenma a little bit earlier in this episode, whilst in the presence of Abdullah. And whilst this is occurring, we finally do get a nice bit of a send-off scene of sorts between the character of Pluto going up against Bora. So do apologize for any and every bit of spoiler in this. But do yourself a favor. Test the spoilers to see if they are accurate. So not long after Pluto goes up against the character of Bora, to which Bora is absolutely full of hatred, there's a really nice scene between Atom and Pluto, which I really enjoyed, and this part of this scene really stood out, to which you saw Atom transfer the blueprint to Pluto to help take out the character of Bora, and that was fantastic. That thing stood out to me towards the end here, and I really like that. The only thing I'm sort of missing is sort of like a bit of an image that I could probably use for it, to which presently there probably is no image that I could use for it, but the images that you do see on screen of the characters that did appear in the story, or this particular story. As Bora is defeated, we start to move towards the end of the very episode, to which at the end of the episode, we end up seeing the teddy by the name of Roosevelt being encountered by the character of Brow, to which one thing that they really should have done in this story is actually given us the Teddy robot's name in this. So anyone reading the manga will know who this character is, but anyone watching the anime, they really should have fixed this up so the audience would know who this character was. Even if you had, say, the president in this particular anime talk to the robot by their personal name, that would have made that a little bit more better within the story. And that is my only small criticism in regards to sort of like the appearance of this teddy robot by the name of Roosevelt. So the story ends off to which we finally see the professor at the end talking, and some of his colleagues, with Atom, and they're sort of like talking in regards to when will this hatred end, because we want to see an end to the hatred in this world. I'll leave it at that. Now it's time to move into the area of my afterthoughts. Now, I must admit, this series has really caught me by surprise. Like a number of situations. I have noticed that they have changed things slightly chronologically, especially time-wise, into when certain events were put into this. With some of those changes, did it ruin it? In some cases, it sort of did. Other places, it sort of didn't. There is something that happened in the manga which should have happened in the anime, and in the manga, there's a situation to which we see the character of Vasily, trying to give a bit of a warning to Epsilon in episode 7. Now, in the manga, we get to see Vasily give the warning to him actually in his own words, so it prepares us, the viewer or the reader, for what is to come. But in the anime here for episode 7, just speaking generally of episode 7, there is a scene to which it's sort of done differently, and the way they approach the scene in regards to this warning, yes, he still brings up Bora, and of course the song happens in relation to Bora, in regards to the orphans that Epsilon has brought into Australia, and we see that he really cares a lot about these orphans that he has taken from the war. And it's really nice and presented in that, but in the anime presentation, they change the warning that he gets from Vasily into a picture. Now, that it does sort of change it. Yes, it does sort of warn or forewarn of a character, or in other words, it's showing the character in a picture. So we know for a fact that Vasily, not only in the manga but also in the anime, he saw Bora, who we will see in episodes 7 and 8, but mainly 8, when you see the character at the park, or in the Yellowstone or Eden Park. So now it's time to move into my overall rating for episodes 7 and 8. So, for the main characters, what do I give them? Well, I think for what they did with the main characters here in episode 7 and 8, I really enjoyed how they also got us, the audience, to try to understand what was happening. I liked how they brought in like some really good memories that connected to all of the characters at the end of the story. So it did its best to leave no stone unturned in relation to the story, to which I give an 8.5 out of 10. The supporting characters. Now, some of the supporting characters, which would be, I guess, Dr. Tenma, some of the professors, I still stick with that, and I'd also include Uran now as like one of those supporting characters, even though they try to somewhat use her like a little bit of a main character, but she's more of a support character. I really still agree that they should have fixed up the way how she was able to sense sadness, whether it be in a human being or a robot. Like, if they had done that the way they showed how Atom was able to transfer the blueprints from himself between himself and Pluto, but in regards, I think it would have given me a little bit more care and concern in regards to how Ran is able to perceive these things. Yes, we understand that she loves her books just like Atom does. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's just this really sort of needed a little bit more work, a little bit more TLC applied to it. But apart from that, I give the characters an 8 out of 10. Next is the animation. An 8 out of 10, as I really quite enjoyed what happened animation-wise within the story and how it was brought across. Yes, even though there are some things that are changed between the manga and the anime, such as one scene in relation to Gashit, and we actually learn of sort of like a boy that he ends up saving, which does also connect with the manga itself. With it, it's actually shown at a certain time, to which in this case they sort of like changed the time to when to use this. We also got to see it, like the whole scene to which he led to him basically killing his first human. To which I give an 8 out of 10. The soundtrack, I must admit, I have quite enjoyed the soundtrack in this particular, or these last 2 episodes. And it does definitely play a bit of a difference. And last but not least, the story rating. Now, I want to give a bit of a heads up to those who do watch this review. I will be doing one more video after this, to which I'll do a overall review of seasons 1 to 8 and my overall rating, like in all sections, taking into account every episode into one full rating. So, but for today's rating of episodes 7 and 8, for what they did in this story of episodes 7 and 8, I give an 8.5 out of 10. To those who have watched the Pluto series, please share in the comments your favorite parts, whether it be in episode 1 all the way up to episode 8. If you think there were things that they missed in the story, what do you think that they should have put in, and how do you think they should have done it better? Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.